Donna Regina knelt in her small garden, the warm sun bathing her in a golden glow. At 68, she was a picture of resilience. Her hands weathered yet gentle, moving deftly among the vibrant plants that burst forth with life. She hummed a soft tune, a melody from her childhood, as she picked ripe fruits, plump guavas, sweet oranges, and clusters of red cherries. Each fruit was a reminder of the love and dedication she had poured into this garden, a sanctuary built with the hands of her late husband, Miguel. The house, with its peeling paint and creaky wooden floors, stood proudly behind her, a testament to their life together. As she gathered the fruits in a woven basket, Regina paused for a moment to take in the serenity of her surroundings. The air was sweet with the scent of blooming flowers, and the distant sound of rustling leaves was like a soothing symphony. She remembered Miguel's laughter, the way he used to tease her about her penchant for talking to the plants. "They might not answer you, Regina," he would chuckle, "but they sure do thrive under your care." A faint smile touched her lips at the memory, a bittersweet pang in her heart. With the basket full, she stood up, stretching her back as she surveyed her little roadside stand. It consisted of a simple table covered with a bright cloth, the fruits arranged in a colorful display. She set up the stand with care, arranging the fruits just so, ensuring that they caught the eye of any passerby. It was her modest source of income, a supplement to her small pension, and she relished every moment spent here. Regina took a deep breath, inhaling the fresh, earthy scent of her garden mixed with the sweetness of the fruits. As the sun climbed higher, she prepared her other delicacy, slices of corn cake, a recipe passed down from her grandmother. The aroma wafted through the air, drawing the attention of travelers who frequently stopped by. Regina had always welcomed them with open arms, her heart full of warmth and generosity. "Good morning," she called out, her voice bright as she waved at a couple approaching. They smiled back, their eyes lighting up at the sight of her stand. "Would you like to try some fresh fruit? It's all from my garden." The couple exchanged glances and nodded, clearly intrigued. "We'd love some," the woman replied, her voice cheerful. "It's not every day we come across such a lovely stand." Regina beamed, feeling a rush of joy. "Please, take as much as you like. And here's a slice of my corn cake on the house, just to sweeten the deal." She handed them the cake, watching as their faces lit up with delight. "Thank you, Donna Regina. You're so generous," the man said, biting into the cake. "This is delicious." As they chatted, Regina felt a pang of loneliness beneath the warmth of her hospitality. Living alone had its challenges, and sometimes the silence of her home felt overwhelming. Yet, moments like these reminded her of the simple joys that life could offer. The couple left with full bags and hearts, promising to return. Just as she finished packing up her supplies, a shadow fell across her stand. Regina looked up to see a young boy, no older than 10, standing there with wide, hungry eyes. His clothes were tattered, and dirt smudged his cheeks. "Hello there, sweetheart. Are you lost?" she asked gently, her heart aching at the sight of him. Lucas nodded, his voice barely a whisper. I'm hungry." Regina's heart swelled with compassion. She reached into her pocket, feeling the last 25 Brazilian reals she had saved for herself. "Here, take this," she said, pressing the crumpled bills into his small hand. "It's not much, but it will buy you something to eat. You deserve it." Lucas looked up at her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "But I can't take this. You need it." "I insist," she replied softly, her voice firm yet kind. "I'd rather see you fed than worry about my own needs. Just promise me you'll get something good to eat." With tears in his eyes, the boy nodded, clutching the money tightly. "Thank you, Donna Regina. I won't forget this." As he turned to leave, Regina felt a profound connection to the boy, a fleeting moment that transcended their brief encounter. She watched him disappear down the dirt road, her heart heavy but content, believing she had made a difference in his life. Little did she know, this small act of kindness would echo through the years, intertwining their lives in ways she could never have imagined. Regina stood at her roadside stand, the fading sunlight casting a warm glow over her modest setup. The air was thick with the scent of ripe fruits and freshly baked corn cake, remnants of a day spent sharing her harvest with passers-by. As the last few travelers trickled by, she thought of Lucas, the boy she had encountered earlier that day. Her heart still ached at the memory of his hungry eyes, and she hoped he would find his way. Watching the horizon, Regina felt a bittersweet pang as she recalled their brief interaction. She had given him her last 25 Brazilian reals, believing it would help him on his journey. "You take care now, little one," she whispered to the empty road, her voice almost lost in the gentle rustling of leaves. The thought of him wandering alone weighed heavily on her heart, but the warmth of having helped him brought her solace. "I did what I could," she murmured, "and that's what matters." Days turned into weeks, and Regina settled back into her routine, tending to her garden and selling fruits at her stand. The seasons shifted, and as the leaves turned golden and fell, she often found herself reminiscing about Lucas. She would gaze down the dirt road, half expecting to see him return, with a smile on his face and a story to tell. Despite the passage of time, the memory of the lost boy lingered in her thoughts. "What became of you, Lucas?" she pondered aloud one afternoon, her hands busy arranging oranges and bananas. Her life continued its simple rhythm. Each morning, she watered her plants, humming her favorite tunes, while her evenings were spent in quiet reflection, often accompanied by a cup of herbal tea. The world outside her little home felt distant, yet she was content. With each fruit she sold, she felt a connection to the community, the travelers who stopped by her stand, sharing brief stories and laughter. Yet, despite this companionship, she often felt a twinge of loneliness, a reminder of the years spent alone after her husband's passing. One rainy evening, as the pitter-patter of raindrops danced against her window, Regina rummaged through her drawer and came across a letter. It was from a local charity, seeking donations. Her heart sank as she read the words, a stark reminder of her financial situation. "Dear Dona Regina," it began, "we are reaching out to our community members to support those in need. Your contribution could help many." She sighed deeply, the weight of her dwindling finances pressing down on her. Memories of her husband flashed through her mind, and she longed for the days when they would sit together, dreaming of their future. Regina's fingers traced the edges of the letter, contemplating her situation. "I wish I could help," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. "But how can I give when I have so little?" She thought of the generosity she had shown Lucas, how she had stretched her last coins to aid a stranger. Yet, the thought of parting with any more money made her heart race with anxiety. The struggle to make ends meet was a familiar tune, one she had danced to for years. "And still, I managed to give," she reminded herself, a flicker of pride igniting within her. "Perhaps one day, it will come back to me." With a determined sigh, she folded the letter and placed it back in the drawer. "For now, I'll keep doing what I can," she resolved. "I may be small, but my heart is big." The rain continued to fall, and as the evening progressed, Regina settled into her armchair, a quilt wrapped around her shoulders. Outside, the world was washed in shades of gray, but inside her home, the warmth of her memories enveloped her like a comforting embrace. She closed her eyes, imagining Lucas and the life he might be leading. "You're out there somewhere," she whispered, a soft smile creeping onto her face. "And I hope you're happy." The rain drummed a soothing rhythm, lulling her into a peaceful slumber, filled with dreams of kindness and the hope of brighter days ahead. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the dirt road that led to Dona Regina's humble roadside stand. Despite the years that had passed, her routine remained largely unchanged. At 68, the years had etched themselves onto her face, softening her skin and deepening the lines around her eyes, yet her spirit remained unbroken. She still tended her garden with the same love and care she had always done, though the yields were a bit less bountiful than in her younger days. As she arranged the fruits on the wooden table, her heart felt a pang of nostalgia, recalling the days when travelers would stop by in droves, drawn by the sweet fragrance of her produce and her warm disposition. Now, fewer people passed, and the quietude of the countryside seemed more pronounced. She sighed softly, brushing her hands on her apron, the fabric worn but still bright with floral patterns. Just then, A noise broke the silence, a crunching of gravel beneath shoes. Regina looked up, her heart momentarily leaping at the thought of a customer. However, her smile faltered as she took in the sight of the man approaching her stand. He was dressed in a tailored suit, polished shoes reflecting the sunlight, and he exuded a confidence that was both foreign and familiar. "Good afternoon," he greeted, his voice rich and warm. Regina squinted, trying to recognize the face that was both strange and oddly comforting. "Good afternoon, young man. What can I do for you?" The man chuckled softly, a sound that seemed to resonate with memories tucked deep within her. "I believe you can do a lot for me, Donna Regina." He stepped closer, and as he did, the sunlight caught his features. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and those unmistakable blue eyes that sparkled with gratitude. Her heart raced as realization washed over her. "Lucas," she breathed, her voice a mix of disbelief and joy. "Is that really you?" He nodded, a smile breaking across his face, and in that instant, the years melted away. The lost boy she had once fed and cared for had transformed into a young man, yet something in his demeanor remained the same. "Yes, it's me. I've come back to thank you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Regina blinked back tears as memories flooded her mind. The day he had stumbled upon her stand, the look of despair in his eyes, and how she had felt an inexplicable connection to him. "I can hardly believe it. You've grown so much." Lucas laughed softly, a sound filled with warmth. "You wouldn't believe the journey I've had since then. Your kindness that day kept me going. I often think of that moment, the last 25 Brazilian reals you gave me. It changed everything." Regina felt a rush of emotions, pride mixing with the bittersweet realization of the time that had passed. "I just did what I could," she replied, her voice quivering slightly. "I couldn't let you go hungry. And that's why I'm here," he said, stepping closer to the stand, his eyes scanning the fruits she had laid out. "I've built a life for myself, and I owe so much of it to you. You cared for a stranger when you didn't have to. I want to repay your kindness." Regina shook her head, a mixture of humility and disbelief washing over her. "I didn't expect anything in return, my dear. Just knowing you were okay was enough for me." "But it isn't enough for me," Lucas insisted, his voice firm yet gentle. "You changed my life, and I want to do the same for you. Please, let me help." Regina looked into his eyes, the sincerity reflecting back at her. It was a gaze filled with admiration, respect, and a deep understanding of the struggles she faced. The weight of loneliness she often carried began to lift, replaced by a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in years. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't need much, just enough to get by." "That's exactly what I want to help you with," Lucas replied, his tone unwavering. "You deserve it, Donna Regina." In that moment, surrounded by the vibrant colors of her garden, Regina felt a surge of warmth. The world felt a little brighter, and for the first time in years, she began to believe that perhaps her small acts of kindness had not only impacted others, but could also lead to unexpected blessings in her own life. Lucas took a deep breath, steadying himself as he prepared to share the story of his journey with Regina. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the small garden, which was bursting with ripe fruits and vibrant flowers. Regina, seated on her weathered wooden chair, looked at him with wide, eager eyes, her heart swelling with a mixture of joy and nostalgia. "You won't believe how your kindness changed my life," Lucas began, his voice thick with emotion. "After you gave me that 25 Brazilian reals, I was able to buy food and find shelter. It was a turning point, you know? I had been lost, with no direction, and your generosity gave me hope." Regina wiped a tear from the corner of her eye, her heart aching with pride. "I didn't do much, dear boy. I just saw someone in need and helped," she replied softly, her voice trembling. "I never thought it would mean so much." Lucas chuckled, a warm sound that filled the air. "It was everything. I remember sitting on the side of the road, feeling like the world had turned its back on me. But your kindness, it ignited a spark. I promised myself I would make something of my life, and I did." "What did you do?" Regina asked, leaning forward with interest. The years seemed to melt away as she listened to Lucas speak, her heart entranced by the journey he described. I worked odd jobs, saved every penny, he continued, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. Eventually, I managed to get a scholarship for school. I studied hard, and after graduation, I landed a good job in the city. I built a life, a career, something I could be proud of. Such determination, Regina exclaimed, her voice brimming with admiration. I always knew you had it in you. Lucas smiled, a sense of accomplishment radiating from him. It's all thanks to you, Regina. Your act of kindness showed me that there are good people in this world. It inspired me to help others, just like you helped me. Regina felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of fulfillment that she hadn't experienced in years. And how do you do that? She asked, her curiosity piqued. I've started a charity, Lucas revealed, his tone shifting to one of pride. We focus on helping children in need, providing food, education, and support. I want to give them the same chance you gave me. Regina's eyes widened, her heart swelling with emotion. That's incredible, Lucas. You've turned your life around and are giving back to others. I'm so proud of you. As they spoke, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the garden. Lucas's demeanor shifted slightly. He seemed to gather his courage for something important. Regina, I didn't just come here to reminisce. I want to repay you for everything you did for me. Regina's heart raced as she sensed the gravity of his words. Oh dear, you don't have to do that. Just hearing about your success is more than enough. No, please, Lucas insisted, his gaze steady. I want to help you. I know times have been tough, and your garden is beautiful, but I can see the weariness in your eyes. You deserve to live comfortably, without worrying about money. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a check, the paper neatly folded. This is for you. It's a donation to help with your home, your garden. You can use it however you need. Regina's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the check, disbelief washing over her. I don't know what to say, she stammered, overwhelmed by the gesture. This is too much. It's not too much, he replied earnestly. It's a small token of my gratitude for the profound impact you had on my life. I want you to know that your kindness didn't just help me. It has created a ripple effect. You've inspired me to do good, to help others, just as you helped me. Regina felt a mix of pride and humility wash over her. She had always believed in the power of small acts of kindness, but seeing the tangible results of her generosity unfold before her was a revelation. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she looked at Lucas, realizing that her simple gesture had not only changed his life, but had also set him on a path to make a difference in the lives of others. I'm truly touched, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Lucas. I never imagined my small act could lead to something so grand. Lucas smiled, a soft, genuine smile that lit up his face. And now, it's time to keep that cycle of kindness going. Together, we can do even more. In that moment, surrounded by the fruits of her labor and the warmth of their reunion, Regina felt a renewed sense of purpose stirring within her. A whisper of hope that perhaps her life was about to change in ways she had never anticipated. As Regina and Lucas sat together at the rustic wooden table outside her little house, the sun dipped low in the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the landscape. The gentle breeze carried the sweet aroma of the fruits that still adorned her stand, and for the first time in years, Regina felt a sense of warmth that transcended the physical comfort of the sun. Can you believe it's been 14 years? Lucas said, a smile illuminating his face. I often think about that day when I stumbled upon your stand, lost and hungry. Your kindness saved me. Regina's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I didn't do much, Lucas. I just saw a boy in need, she replied, her voice thick with emotion. But hearing you say that, it means the world to me. Lucas leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. It was more than just that 25 Brazilian reals, Regina. It was the hope you gave me. I was wandering without a direction, and your generosity lit a path for me. I knew then that I wanted to help others, just like you helped me. Regina's heart swelled with pride as she listened to him. You've done so well for yourself. What's your secret? I founded a charity, Lucas said, his voice bubbling with enthusiasm. It's dedicated to helping children and families in need, offering them food, education, and a sense of belonging. I want to replicate the kindness you showed me. You inspired me to do this. Regina's brow furrowed slightly. A charity? Lucas, that's wonderful, but I'm just an old woman living in a small house. How can I contribute to something so grand? Because you already have. Lucas exclaimed, leaning forward. You have the heart of a giver. I want to invite you to be a part of it. Your experiences, your stories, those can inspire others. You can help us understand the needs of the community better. Regina's mind raced. The idea of being involved in something meaningful excited her, yet a sense of doubt crept in. But what can I possibly offer? I spend my days selling fruits and reminiscing about my past. I'm afraid I won't have the energy or the skills. Lucas reached out, placing a reassuring hand over hers. You have a gift, Regina. You've lived a life full of compassion and resilience. Your garden is a symbol of nurturing, and that's exactly what our community needs. You could share your wisdom and help us create programs that feed not just the body, but the soul. Regina looked down at their hands, feeling a spark ignite within her as she processed his words. Perhaps she had underestimated her own strength and the potential impact she could have. Maybe I could help organize a community garden, she suggested tentatively. It could teach children about growing food and caring for nature. Exactly, Lucas said, his eyes shining with excitement. We could even host workshops. You'd be the heart of the project, sharing your knowledge with those who are eager to learn. It would bring the community together. Regina's heart raced. The thought of working alongside Lucas, who had blossomed into a remarkable man, filled her with a renewed sense of purpose. I've always wanted to do something more, she admitted, her voice growing stronger. To give back in a way that honors my husband's memory and the lessons he taught me. Lucas nodded, his expression serious yet encouraging. Then let's do it together. We can plan the first steps, talk to the other families in the community. You won't be alone in this, Regina. I'll be right beside you. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the air was filled with a sense of promise and hope. Regina felt as if the weight of her years had lightened, and a new chapter was beginning to unfold. All right, Lucas, she said, a smile breaking through her uncertainty. Let's make this happen. Their laughter mingled with the sounds of the evening, filling the air with warmth and possibility. Regina realized that life, even in its twilight years, could still hold adventures and connections that transformed not only oneself but also the community at large. As they made plans, she could feel the spirit of her husband watching over her, proud of the woman she was becoming. A beacon of hope and compassion once again. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over Dona Regina's garden. As she tended to her beloved plants, a shadow fell across her path. It was Lucas, now a young man whose presence seemed to fill the space with an energy she hadn't felt in years. They had just begun to understand the potential of their partnership when a darker cloud loomed over Regina's small world. Her miler, her neighbor. Regina had always considered herself a kind-hearted woman, someone who believed in the goodness of people. But her trust was shaken when she noticed her fruit supply dwindling more than usual. At first, she thought it was merely the result of a poor growing season. But the truth became clear when she caught a glimpse of her miler, his hands full of her prized apples, sneaking away like a thief in the night. Lucas, she said, her voice tinged with a mix of anger and disbelief. I think Mr. Mahler has been stealing from me. Lucas furrowed his brow. Are you sure, Regina? It could be a misunderstanding. I've seen him, she insisted, her heart pounding. I watched him take the fruit right from my garden. I don't know why he would do this. I've always shared my harvest with the community. Lucas placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then we need to gather proof. We can't let him take advantage of your kindness. Regina nodded, her resolve solidifying. Together, they devised a plan. They set up a small camera discreetly hidden among the leaves, ready to capture any further theft. Each day, they would check the footage, their anticipation growing with each passing hour. After a few days of waiting, the moment finally arrived. They watched the screen intently, hearts racing, as her miler appeared on the footage. his hands reaching for the ripe fruits. Regina felt a mixture of sadness and betrayal. This man, who lived so close and had often shared small talk over the fence, was taking advantage of her generosity. "Look at him," Regina exclaimed, her voice barely a whisper. "How could he do this?" Lucas clenched his jaw. "We have to confront him. This isn't just about the fruit. It's about respect." The following day, they approached Hermiler's house, the air thick with tension. Regina's heart raced, but she felt empowered by Lucas's presence beside her. They knocked on the door, and after a moment, Hermiler appeared, a surprised look crossing his face. "Ah, Dona Regina." "Lucas, what brings you here?" he asked, his voice deceptively friendly. "Mr. Mahler," Regina began, summoning her courage. "We need to talk. We have evidence of you taking fruit from my garden." His face paled slightly, but he quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Evidence? Surely, you must be mistaken. I wouldn't do such a thing." "Don't lie to me," Regina said, her voice steady. "We have video footage. You can't keep taking what isn't yours." Lucas stepped forward, his demeanor firm. "This isn't just about the fruit, Mr. Mahler. It's about the respect you owe to your neighbors." For a moment, Herr Mahler seemed to shrink beneath their scrutiny. I didn't think anyone would notice. I thought it was just a small thing," he stammered, eyes darting to the ground. Regina's compassion momentarily flickered, but she reminded herself of the importance of standing firm. "It's not small to me. It's my livelihood. I've worked hard for every fruit in that garden. You need to stop this, or I'll have no choice but to report you." The confrontation lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken truths. Herr Mahler sighed deeply, the weight of his actions settling on him. "I suppose I've let my jealousy get the better of me," he admitted, finally looking her in the eye. "I'm sorry, Regina. I'll stop." Regina felt a mixture of relief and empowerment. "I hope you mean it, Herr Mahler. We all have our struggles, but we can't let them turn us against one another." As they walked away, Lucas glanced at her, pride shining in his eyes. "You did great, Regina. You stood up for yourself." Regina smiled, feeling a newfound strength. "Thank you, Lucas. I couldn't have done it without you. It's time I take charge of my life, not just my garden." In the following weeks, Herr Mahler kept his word, and their neighborhood began to heal. Regina's garden flourished once more, and with Lucas by her side, she felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in years. Together, they began to think of ways to help others in their community, turning their focus from the past to a brighter future filled with hope and kindness.